my competitive nature and my hunger needs to always be, I'm fighting for a spot. And I allowed that to switch my mindset a little bit, and I kind of lost that tiger, you know. And I went into spring training, and I was just behind. You know, my strength numbers were just behind. My arm wasn't where I needed it to be. And then you start spring training games, and your competitive nature is not, oh, well, it's a process. I got to get my stuff back. No, you're trying to win a game,
right?
You know, like, even if it doesn't matter, I don't want this guy to beat me, you know, or you're facing a AAA prospect.
Right.
I want to beat that guy.
Hey guys, welcome to the Troy Gramling podcast. It is, as always, an honor to get to hang out with you guys. Our heart is to partner so that you can reach your potential. So if you haven't subscribed, and that would really help, because the algorithm is literally king. All right, share it with somebody. And today we have a very special guest, have Alek Manoah with us. Welcome to the program today.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Pastor.
It's great to see you. And I thought it'd be cool to talk a little bit about some of the challenges you've been through. For those who are listening, you were here in, I was told, program 44 or episode 44. And but you are a Major League Baseball player. People are always interested by professional athletes. So let's just real quickly rehearse your story. You went to high school where?
Southdale High School down in Homestead.
And then you went to college where?
West Virginia University.
And what position do you play?
I'm a pitcher.
You're a pitcher. And then and what year did you get signed?
2019. I left West Virginia and entered the draft and got picked up.
And where did you go?
To the Blue Jays, Toronto Blue Jays.
Toronto Blue Jays. Now, you know, we always hear these stories. When you signed your contract, and did you go out and buy something or anything like that, or are you more laid back kind of person?
Well, the first thing I did was bought my mom a house. So that was that was the first thing that was, you know, heavy on my heart the whole time through it. And you know, just seeing everything that she did for me and my brother while we were growing up. It was a token of my heart to be able to pay that back to her. And I never really had a car growing up either, so I bought myself an Audi, a nice car.
Okay. So a house for your mom.
Yep.
And a car. That's pretty. Was your mom surprised?
Or
have you been telling her the whole time?
I kind of had to give her a budget, so she kind of knew it was coming. So I was like, hey, I want to buy you a house, but within these parameters, you know. But no, I'm just kidding. She was super excited, and awesome. You know, when they got the keys, her and my stepdad, they've loved it, and they've enjoyed it ever since.
Wow. So 2019, is that what you said? And so how'd the first year go?
The first year was actually pretty hectic for me because I had finished my college season. And then they sent me down to the complex. You know, they just do like assessments on your body, your arm, your flexibility areas of that we could work on and things like that. They really like to gauge what you were doing in college, what works for you, your routine, things like that. They shut me down because I'd thrown so many innings in college. So they shut me down for like 2-3 weeks. And then they shipped me out to Vancouver, which is where they had like a rookie, whatever league over there. And I did great. And then I go to my first spring training in 2020, like my first full real season with the Blue Jays, and COVID hits. So it was kind of a crazy start to my career, but I feel like we were able to make a ton of positive strides through COVID, kind of a time where a lot of people were kind of just staying here. And I feel like we went like this, and it really showed once 2021 came around. So the start was a little, you know, not sure where it was going to go, but it's been good.
So how many games did y'all play in 2020? Did you play a full season? Or?
No, 2020, we went to spring training, and I literally remember we were in the cafe like 6:30 in the morning, and we see like the whole Rudy Gobert he's a basketball player. He had the interview where he started touching everything, like making fun of it. And then the next day he had COVID, and we literally had seen the video of him touching everything and then coming out COVID positive, and we're like, oh, there it goes, we're done. And for sure, it was a week later, they kind of kept us around, but hey, just stay at your hotel or your apartment or whatever. And then after that, they just sent everybody home. And it wasn't until I want to say like July maybe where things started opening up a little bit. And that's when they brought us all back into like an alternate site, which was basically like no family, no friends. It was just us in a hotel, bus, field. We'd play like scrimmages against each other, back to the bus, back to the hotel. And that's what it was for the last, 2 months or whatever of that season. And then 2021 was my first full season.
Okay. So did they play a season? I can't remember. Did they play it all in 2020?
Yeah, they had no fans.
Okay.
And the season was only it was the last 2 months of the season, so it must have been August and September, and then just playoffs in October.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So whoever won the World Series that year is always going to get an asterisk for that.
Well, it was the Dodgers. So them winning this year was like, what are you gonna say now?
And they won pretty convincingly.
Yeah, it was very convincingly.
All right. So then you go into 2021, and what kind of year do you have that year?
Great year. I went into spring training. I don't think many people had expectations just because, the year previous, nobody got anything out of it. And I feel like me and my brother, we had opened the gym down here in South Florida. We were still training, working out while a bunch of gyms were closed. People weren't doing much. So we made some really good strides, and then went to that alt site, made really good strides there as well. Went into that off season, had a really great off season, and got into spring training in 2021. Got invited to the big league, spring training. So I was with all the big guys, and then they threw me out there against the Sharks. And every time I went out there, I just struck out a bunch of people, and they were like, "Oh crap, maybe this guy will help us this year." Like nobody was sure, and then they sent me straight to AAA. So I skipped basically all the lower level minor leagues, went straight to AAA. My first 3 starts, I believe, were like 6 innings, 12 strikeouts, 6 innings, like 10 strikeouts, and 6 innings, 12 strikeouts. And our big league club was struggling. So they were like, "Hey, you feel ready? Like, come on down." And I had a really good season. I feel like I was able to go in there and kind of just bring like a good positive energy to the clubhouse. Kind of that young guy that's just super energetic, and was able to pitch well. Thank the Lord. And yeah, it was super fun. Especially I debuted in Yankee Stadium. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so that was
Did you win? Did you get
yeah,
that?
I did. I threw 6 innings, no runs, and we ended up getting the win. So it was a cool day.
So now what's that like when you walk out there everybody's, in their mind been there, just playing wiffle ball or whatever.
Yeah.
So what was it like when you walk out there and you look around and
Oh, it was unbelievable, and it was actually kind of crazy because I was supposed to make my start the day before, and we got canceled for rain, but it was sunny out, and I was like, "Oh my God, now I gotta do this whole sleep again," the jitters and all that stuff. But no, it was unbelievable. I literally got out there. I just looked around and I was like, "Wow, this is unreal." I had all my family there. I had left like 50 something tickets that day, so had all my family, friends, everybody that helped me get to that point in life was there. So it was super awesome.
wow, and then you get the win. So
Yeah,
can't beat
yeah,
that.
icing on the cake.
Yeah. So so then now you've got expectations because you do so well, and the team and the fans and everybody, I'm sure, starts to have big dreams. And then what happens as you go into the next year?
Yeah, 2022, I followed it up with probably a best year of my life. Um, Finished, top 3 in Cy Young, was first team all MLB All Pro, and yeah, just had an unbelievable 2022. And that's when the expectations were really high. We had I started our first game of the postseason, um, which was an unbelievable experience for me. We didn't win that one, so that's why I say it's an experience. But yeah, it was amazing. And then going into 2023, that's where I kind of struggled a little bit. My shoulder kind of started bugging me a little bit, and just a lot of things just weren't really falling my way. And I feel like that was the testament to God telling me like, hey, you've had all this success. But I also remember during COVID when we were freaking out about like what's gonna happen, and I this is my opportunity to play professional baseball. Like, is there gonna be like, and always after you hit that valley, so for me it was like I was at a super high, and then 2023 was a kind of a weird year for me.
Right.
But we keep our mindset positive and strong, and the only thing we could do is just keep working.
Yeah. So you go out there and like you said, you're in the Cy Young conversations and did over the year, did your confidence get stronger with each game? Did you feel the pressure like, I'm having a great season here. I
It's
could win the Cy Young.
Yeah, yeah, it's super tricky because a lot of guys, it could go either one way or the other way. You can be like, oh my God, I didn't even realize I was doing all this. And then once you realize you go downhill. But for me, my competitive nature, I wanted to win that. I was in it. And every start I went out there, I was fighting for my life. Like I was just like, I can't give up a run. I can't give up 2 runs. This guy's over here, killing it. Um, and that ended up being, I lost to Justin Verlander, who is
Right.
going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And that was probably his best season yet. He had like a 1 point something ERA, and he did amazing. So he deserved it. But yeah, it was super fun being in that hunt and kind of, not only chasing that down, but just we're in the postseason hunt as well. So, yeah, it's a super, super exciting baseball.
Yeah. That's incredible, when you think about it. So then you start the next season with, huge expectations, right? Everybody wants to get better as a
Yep.
player, as a team, all of that. And did you immediately know that some of the struggles were physical, or did you feel that some of them, were emotional or mental, or how did you progress when things weren't, you had this great year and then you're struggling. So how were you processing that?
Well, for me, it started, I had that really great year, and then the off season that I had was not the same off season I was used to having, just because, we played in the postseason. So my season was much longer than I was used to. I had thrown 200 innings that year, which I had never thrown anywhere near that.
Mm.
So just kind of talking with like veteran guys, talking with, our training staff, all that, we kind of took the off season more recovery based and more, treat the shoulder that's barking a little bit. And, I had my knee was a little, so it was like, hey, let's really use the off season to recover. Let's get you right. You just went off your biggest workload year ever. Um,
Now, was that hard for you to do? I mean, to submit to what they were telling you to do?
well, for me, it's okay. I'm listening to these veteran guys that have done it for 10 years, have done it at a high level for 10 years. I'm listening to a training staff. I'm also listening to my body. But at the same time, I'm very grateful for, some of those challenges, because you learn, and for me, you don't truly learn something unless you've been through it, like, and for me, it was like, I'm used to off seasons training super hard. Like, I don't think it's a young factor or an old factor. Like, I've learned that I can't go into an off season just prioritizing recovery. I have to still train like an animal. I have to still condition very hard. I can't go into camp there, and that's what's really cool about baseball, is that everybody is different. Usually point guards are the shorter guys. Squeak in and out. Big guys are the centers. Those guys don't have the same training regimens. So it's the same in baseball. Everybody kind of trains differently, and some guys train and they get sore and they get tight, and and so they're more stretchy and mobility and stuff like. So it's very different, everybody's plan. But for me, it was, okay, understanding. I didn't start my throwing program where I usually did. I started it later. We rehabbed some of the injuries, and then I just got into camp. And as a competitor, I'm in the camp. They're like, hey, let's use camp to get ready. And for me, I've always come into camp like I am ready.
Mm.
I'm here, and the conversation that off season was always like, hey, we need to make sure you make it through the whole year next year. Like, it's okay if you start a little slower. It's okay if you're not fighting for a spot. And my competitive nature and my hunger needs to always be, I'm fighting for a spot. I'm fighting for, and I allowed that to switch my mindset a little
Mm,
bit, and I kind of lost that tiger,
mm,
and I went into spring training and I was just behind. My strength numbers were just behind. My arm wasn't where I needed it to be. And then you start spring training games and your competitive nature is not, oh well, it's a process. I gotta get my stuff back. No, you're trying to win a game,
right,
like even if it doesn't matter, I don't want this guy to beat me, or you're facing a triple A prospect.
right.
I want to beat that guy. So I had then prioritized the results instead of the process at that point, and then I just created a ton of bad habits that I just never caught up where I needed to be throughout that whole season. It was like I was constantly playing catch up, but it was something that was extremely important. I feel like, I pray to the Lord that I have a super long career, and obviously that'll be deep in the rearview mirror.
Right.
But I feel like I needed that to happen for me to have a super long career, to be able to understand this is what my body needs, and this is how my body works. This is how my mindset works, and even though a bunch of guys do it differently, this is now I know that's not what works
Right.
for me. You know?
Now, when you started and you were struggling some, all that you just shared, did you know that at the time, or were you trying to figure out what was going
No, I
on?
thought what I was doing was right. I'm like, hey, I've never thrown 200 innings. Guys that have thrown, 200 innings in a season, usually start later. My therapist at home, that does all my rehab on my arm and stuff like that. He's like, hey, let's start you. I'm gonna talk to the team. Let's start you a little later. Like you just threw a ton of innings and all that stuff. And everybody was kind of on the same page. And I thought what we were doing was right,
Mm,
and um that's another lesson to learn, that no matter how good you're doing, you have to stay focused on the little things, because I should have been able to see through that off season, like, hey, I this isn't right, this isn't right, or even getting to camp, my velocity, I'm usually like 94, 95, 96. My velocity was like 91, 90. I should have known, but the competitive nature is like, I'll figure it out. I'll get it
right.
right. It'll happen. I could pitch at 65, 70%. And then, but what ended up happening was I was constantly like, okay, or my legs are off and my back hip is off. And okay, got that. Hold on. But now my arm is like, it was just like a bouncing back and forth on trying to figure it out. And then while you're doing that, Mike Trout's in front of you. And it's like, he's not out there thinking of that. He's thinking, all right, there's a fastball, there's a slider. So it's tough to compete against the best of the world when you're fighting yourself.
Right, right. How did you deal with that? Because I think most people, they may not be like you say facing Mike Trout, but they've got the person in the desk next to them, or the company down the street. How did you, I mean, emotionally deal with that? Because I think, you have great success and then struggle, which again is not uncommon to people, but that's what trips a lot of people up, even gets them into worst habits or, escapes or all kind. So how did you deal with that? Especially the deeper, the longer that it went. Did you just force yourself? I mean, what?
No, there were a lot of dark nights, for sure. But I'm so grateful for the support group that I have. And one thing that, guys around the league, teammates, best friends, parents, anybody would always tell me is, don't forget who you are,
Mm,
right? Don't forget who you are. Don't change who you are. And that's the one thing while you're going through it that you forget. And even when somebody tells you like, don't forget who you are, you're like, well, who am I?
yeah.
I already forgot. So for me, it's, you have to go through it. And then, hindsight is the worst thing ever,
Right.
you know, cause like you look back, and I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, I can't believe I allowed myself to get there.
Right.
And as a competitor, as somebody who's working every day, as somebody who's striving for good things, when you don't see results, it's easy to either do too much or stop
Mm,
working hard, or, spiritually just fall off. And for me, I'm just thankful that, there were some really, tough nights. There were some nights I'd have a game and I'd come home like, honey, what was that? What was that? And I would lay in bed and I would cry and I'd
Right.
pray to the God. I'd pray to God like, why is this happening? I'm like, why do we do so good and now we're like, and everything he just kept. I felt like he was telling me was, this is a part of it, man.
Right.
This is a part of it. You're gonna have a long career, and this is a part of it. And something that I did was I went and I looked at a ton of Hall of Famers, and you look at their 15-year career, their 18-year career, and you never want to compare yourself to anybody else. But Justin Verlander's third year in the league, he had a 5 ERA, and he had a couple other seasons with high fours ERA. And when he's looking now that he's a Hall of Famer and a 14-time All-Star and all that stuff, he's like, yeah, I remember that year. It's like not a big deal, but I guarantee you when he was in it, he was like, oh, this is tough, So I feel like having that hindsight mentality a little bit of like, what do I want me 2 years ago, 2 years from now to say about this situation in my life? And it took a lot of, tough moments and a lot of, tough situations to realize that. Which then, this year happens and I end up having the season ending, surgery. And I feel like God was preparing me during that year for this to then be able to blossom, next year and the year after that and all that stuff. So
Now,
yeah.
which was more difficult? Was the year where you kind of struggling and trying to, reflect on how you started and all that, or when you got injured?
Yeah.
Was one more challenging, mentally than the other, or
The spiritual fortitude that I have now after going through what I went through in 2023 is, I don't think anything will ever be as hard as that again. And I mean, knock on wood, I don't want to, get too ahead of myself because anything can happen, in life. But what God taught me in that year, and then, for this season to come, and, I had, my first 5 starts of the year were great, and to be able to show that competitiveness again, to be able to not show it to the outsiders, but show it to myself. Hey, all that hard stuff we went to, all the mental conversations we had, all the spiritual conversations we had, everything that we've kind of built, like it's showing off well for myself. Like this was all needed to get here. And then my elbow snaps and that next conversation to God is like, what? Come on. And everything he just kept telling me through prayer, my heart would just get nudged that you've already been through this. You've already been through this, but even harder because now the reason is you physically cannot go do it. Before you physically thought you could do it. So like that's a tougher mental battle. So, I just think back to any part of my life when I was a kid, when my parents got divorced, when my dad went to jail, everything that's happened through my life, God has shown me the light at the end of the tunnel. And during that really tough 2023 year, I was like trying to run through that tunnel. Where's the light? Where's the light? But he showed it to me. So I know there will be light at the end of this tunnel as well.
Yeah, and it's cool that you went and you looked at the Hall of Famers. In other words, you were proactive in working through it, not just kind of sitting in it, but kind of proactive. And then I know for me, a lot of times when things don't go the way I want, my first temptation is to do, like you said, too much.
Yeah.
I want to fix it overnight.
Yep.
Yeah, and then when it doesn't get fixed overnight, because that's impossible,
Even more frustrating.
yes, then you just get discouraged. Then you say, "Well, I can't do it anymore." And it's so easy. And I just think to me, it's important for folks to hear from you, because I think everybody goes through those times in their life, and it's so easy to either give up or to just go in a different direction, as opposed to continuing to just take the step that's in front of them, because it's really all that you can do. And now, do you find yourself, as you prepare for this year, coming off the surgery and all those things, do do you have to kind of hold yourself back a little bit? I mean, I'm assuming in some sense you're incredibly ready to,
Yeah.
to get going.
Yeah.
And
I'm not holding back anything at all. I came out of surgery and the first thing I told the doctor was, I'm ready to compete. And I brought a baseball with me in my backpack, and I came out of surgery. I was stuck in a sling like this. I told my wife, I said, pass me my iPad and pass me the baseball. And I mean, this might have been the drugs that they had me on for the surgery, but I just started watching my starts from that season, and how good I was doing. And I just kept holding the baseball in my hand, and I still hold that baseball every day. And I don't want to forget what that ball feels like and what that ball means to me and in my life, and how many people I'm able to impact because of that ball, and how special it is. And um, yeah, we're being very smart. We're listening to the doctors, the trainers, all that stuff, but we're not holding back anything, and our strength coaches and stuff are like, hey, like we should kind of just hear, and then right towards the end when you're ready with skyrocket, I'm like, no, I want to go like this. Um, so there'll be more challenges through this, and there's been a ton of challenges, already through the surgery, but um, one of the things I talked to my mom about through all the struggles is I'm like, hey, you know what the hardest thing about my job is than yours? I'm like, first off, we are extremely blessed to play baseball for a living. To be able to impact kids, to be able to grow up dreaming of doing something and then do it, it's an unbelievable blessing. Even the struggle at this level, for me, it's better than a great day in any other job. But I tell my mom, I'm like, hey, have you ever had a bad day at work? And she's like, yeah, all the time. And I'm like, and it sucks, right? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, you want to know what's bad about my bad days at work? That it's on the TV and it's in the newspaper and everybody knows about it. And I'm like, that's the only difference. I'm like, when you have a bad day, you don't hear me calling you like, hey, are you all right? You know, or anything like that. So I always try and put that into perspective, like, hey, we're human. And that's one thing that I've learned through my whole career is like, I'm not just a baseball player. That's what I do. It's not who I am. I still come home to my puppy, my wife, my family. And I'm like, hey, it's a bad day at work. And over 162 games in one season,
We're gonna have some bad
there's
days.
going to be some bad days. There's going to be a lot of bad days. Some seasons there's going to be more bad days than good days. But at the end of the day, it's still a blessing. And
the fans aren't always quite as grace giving, maybe as
that's a part of it though, because I actually learned I heard a really good quote that to me stuck with me forever, and is like, when they're cheering for you, they're not cheering for you, they're cheering for your success. And when they're booing you and not clapping for you and asking for you to be traded and all that stuff, they're not doing that to you. They're doing that because of your failures on the field. So I feel like for me, that kind of puts it all into perspective. And even myself as a Dolphins fan or a Heat fan, like I say, come on, so that's just a part of the nature. Yeah, it's a part of it.
probably harder on your beloved and your mom than it is in some ways on
Yeah, I
on you.
gotta block the social media DMs, all that stuff. She's like, I can't believe it. Look what they're saying. Let's just forget about it.
Oh, it's crazy. So, and the cool thing is, in the midst of that, you got married, right? And so you guys have walked through this together,
Mhm.
and that's the kind of thing that can either push people apart or can actually, draw them together. And
Yep.
so, in some ways, to be able to have that experience together, you know what I mean? It's going to be something that you can always go back to, as opposed to just something you went through, by yourself.
Yep. Yep. We'll remember a lot of those nights.
Yeah.
And no matter what, she's always, stuck with me. And even through, I was having that really bad year, we were planning for the wedding. I'd say she mostly did all the planning because I was like, hey, I can't right now. I need to focus.
Right.
But no matter what, she's always understood. And, that's the reason why I wanted to marry her, is because I know that through the good, through the bad, through everything, she's always going to be there to remind me, how great I am, how grateful that we need to be. And through all the highs, she's always going to humble me. and no matter what.
So she's an athlete too.
100%. So she doesn't ever allow this, and she doesn't ever allow this. She keeps me right there. So she's amazing.
So if you guys want to, you go back to episode 44. We actually talked about how you guys met and all of those things as well. Well, thanks for sharing with us. I'm inspired by you guys. I mean, I know all that you've been through, and to see your heart and your passion continue is it's exciting. You know, it inspires me. You know, when I get discouraged, it's like, you know, I'm reminded of your spirit, and that encourages me to not get too down and move forward.
Well, thank you. A lot of your speeches on Sundays, and a lot of your preaching, and a lot of the way that you impact the community, it's inspiring for us. So we're super happy to be a part of this beautiful church.
Well, thank you, and we look forward to a great season.
Yes, sir.
It'd be awesome to go to the World Series. Wouldn't it?
That'd be amazing.
Hey guys, thanks so much for being a part today. Don't forget to share and to hit the bell and do all the stuff you got to do. The algorithm matters. It makes a difference. And live streams on Sunday nights. Hey, we'll see you next time. God bless. Y'all have a great day.